So, before I get started, I want to reread a bit of the Gospel account. It's one of my favorite bits, honestly. While I sat contemplating these things, lo, the heavens opened, and the world shook and trembled beneath my feet. In the light, I beheld a youth who stood beside me. Even as I looked, he became like an old man, then like a servant. Yet there were not three before me, but one, with multiple forms appearing through each other, as though transparent. He said to me, John, John, why do you doubt? I am the one who is with you always. I am the Father, I am the Mother, I am the Son. And that's one of those passages that took me multiple readings before I figured it out. Because the first time I read it, the whole mother as servant thing got to my emotional level, and I'm just like, why is she the servant? And like, all of the human stuff happened, and I kind of missed the forest of the trees. And then I read it again, and I had this sense of like, and maybe I'm the only one who had this experience, but when I read it, it was like, it was more than just the three forms. It was like it was almost like all of creation, but not. It was like more than just three forms. It was like all of these different things all on top of each other and separate and together at the same time. And then I had an experience with the Holy Spirit where I realized that the first time I read it, I had been thinking of servant the wrong way, because on our earthly plane, servant has these connotations of being lower class and like, subservient. There's a whole power dynamic, and there's a bunch of negative stuff that goes with it. But the thing is that if you take the idea of a servant and you take it to a higher realm of existence, you get rid of all of the power dynamic stuff and all of the extra bits that cling on to it that isn't actually part of being a servant. It's the trappings of society that get wrapped around the idea that makes it seem like it's part of the same thing when it's really a warped idea of the true aeonial ideal of servant. Because the thing about servant, when you take out all the human trappings, it's about helping other people, and I guess taking your ego out of it. Not in the we all need an ego to live, but you just help people to help people, and you don't make it about yourself because you're not thinking about that. It's one of those things that understanding and explaining are two different things. I don't have all of the words for it. But then when I think about servant, I realize that most of the service, or mass, a lot of the language is talking about like serving other people. Going through orders is about ultimately handling all of your stuff, and then before you move on to helping other people, there's a lot of servant helpingness that is woven through all of this in a sort of underlying subtle but not subtle way. And I realized that I might have had an experience of the Mother, the Holy Spirit as the servant, but I also realized that there's an aspect to the personality of Sophia and Jesus that is also very servant-like, in that helping other people, no ego, not turning people away for any weird reason or whatever. It's, you come to me, I help you, sort of a thing, because consent is a good thing. And then I realized that in accessing any one of the Trinity, you get all the powers of all of them, whether you realize it or not. And I used to have this idea that the different parts of the Trinity had I don't want to say different powers, but different emphases. But I've realized that it's the same thing, but it's not at the same time. And that's what they're talking about. It's both things at the same time. Like most of my life, I've had a hard time really understanding and like, conceptualizing the Trinity. And part of it is that there's no way, it's like one of those, I think it's Escher who makes those paintings where it's like stairs that go up and then turn this way, and like it can't exist in 3 dimensions. It's physically impossible. And I feel like that's sort of the sort of thing we're talking about. It's the idea that's so aeonial that it can't physically exist. So it exists, but on a different reality that is also within all of us at the same time. And part of me feels like this homily we better talked about on like Trinity Sunday, but this is what I was thinking about when I was reading all of this, so I went with it. Well, and I also figured it works because both the gospel and the lesson are sort of talking about the nature of God and the divine in and of themselves and with their interaction with us. And how, like with the Trinity, they and us are the same and not the same, and, you know, multiple things being true at the same time, even though it feels like it shouldn't exist that way, but it does. And then, of course, I also got to thinking about how the gospel is a perfect example, I guess, of in the Gospel of Thomas, where it talks about, seek until you find, and you find you'll be disturbed, and then, you'll reign over the all. And that's basically what happens. He has, he has this conversation, freaks out, runs into the desert, and then has this experience that more or less ends up answering his questions. And I mean, in life, it doesn't usually work out quite as perfectly as it does in this, but then again, most of us don't run to the desert and literally talk to God, so, trade-offs. And then I also thought about trying to weave in the whole honeycomb thing, but then I realized that would take way too long because, well, bees are fascinating and a very interesting metaphor. Talking about how bees are basically unionized themselves so that we're not actually exploiting them as a completely different topic, one I really want to talk about, but I won't, because again, I would make this go way too long. But I guess that also filters back into the whole, things are not always what they appear like on the surface, because, ignorance can get in your way. Because, there are some folks who think that they shouldn't ingest products of bees because it's exploitation of animals, but the way bees actually work is if they're being mistreated, they will leave. It's way more complicated than that, but bees aren't domesticated the same way like cows or chickens are. They have things in place, and they also know what's going on a level a lot of us don't give them credit for, because they deliberately make more than they need because they know the beekeeper is going to come and take some. It helps everyone out. The beekeeper helps them stay alive. The combs that the beekeeper supplies is actually more structurally sound than what they create in nature. Everyone benefits from this, including the plants. So, I guess where I'm going to leave this is, one, there's always more than one way to look at things. Two, it's really hard sometimes to know when you don't know what you don't know. And there's a lot of people who don't realize they don't know everything about P specifically, as an example. Ignorance is tricky that way. It wasn't until like 10 years ago, or probably a little more than that, that I realized that the concept of not knowing what you don't know in a like visceral way, because I had a job where I didn't know what I didn't know all the time, and it drove me crazy. But I'm getting off topic, so I will leave it there. So go in peace. May the lady always.